Hey everybody, welcome back to Necessary Conversations. I am your host, Julie Fackrell, and as always, I just want to start by saying thank you for being here. This episode is a tough one. I've gone back and forth on how to approach this without saying too much, hurting people who might be involved, and also speaking my truth. There's a fine line there. But moving that fine line to the side a little bit, I'm going to jump right in by reading a poem by Louise Bond. It's called Autism in the Family, and it goes something like this. Autism in the Family by Louise Bond. Some children can say how they're feeling when they're worried, anxious, or scared. But others cannot find the words, leaving them frustrated and despaired. These children are fighting battles in their minds each and every day. Battles some people don't understand and choose to stay away. Our son is battling with autism. The days can be challenging and long. While we love him unconditionally, it's sometimes hard to stay strong. All his anger and frustrations grow more violent through the years as he struggles with a younger mind than those of all his peers. We feel the brunt of those frustrations. We can ache from limb to limb, but no matter how hard life gets for us, we know it's so much harder for him. For every child deserves to feel safe. But some of them feel scared, not understanding the world they see, and being constantly compared. His sleep is filled with nightmares. When those at school are unkind, he wakes confused and angry, unable to free them from his mind. Still, every day we begin anew, holding hope deep in our hearts that today will turn out differently and his future can finally start. Those days turn into weeks and months with progress painfully slow, but no matter how small the step is, we celebrate with hearts aglow. As we know how hard it was for him just to make that step at all. Not easy like some others find, but at a slow and anxious crawl. As the parents of an autistic child, we have much worry and stress. We need our family and friends' support, but sadly feel isolation and loneliness. Though his unexpected smile or hug will more than make our day, it's those extra special moments that help ease the pain away. His heart is full of goodness. His smile brings us so much joy. We only wish the world could see the way we see our amazing boy. As some are quick to blame the parents and think that autism doesn't exist, saying it's all down to discipline that's lacking or being missed. To all those people, both near and far, I want to simply say, before you judge our family, please come live our day. We did not make this happen. In all honesty, who would? But this is our life and reality, and it's time it was understood. It hurts to see him suffering, knowing we cannot take it away, that it will never be grown out of, that autism is here to stay. All our hopes and dreams for him, for the life we thought he'd lead, are now cloudy and uncertain, but together we will succeed. Still, we worry about his future, praying that our lives are long. Who will love and look after him? What will happen when we're gone? These thoughts stay with us every day and haunt our minds at night. When the darkness makes fear stronger and the worries hard to fight. But we must not hide ourselves away, for his sister's sake and ours. But as sensory overload gets too much, his behavior quickly sours. So when you see a shouting child and look on with a scowl, remember, they may not be spoiled or naughty, but feeling anxious and overwhelmed. You cannot see inside their minds or through their frantic eyes. You do not know what panicked them. You only hear their cries. So please, don't stand and stare or point at families struggling on each day. Some acceptance and understanding will go a long, long way. If you have been listening, you know I've shared a lot about my son Jacob, his daily struggles with autism and some of the challenges that come with hearing voices and how that has shaped all of our lives. But what I have not talked about as much is how all of this has impacted his little sister, or how in ways I didn't actually fully understand at the time, it impacted me too. It's that feeling of being unseen, unheard for so many years, just pushing forward, doing the things we need to do, doing what needed to be done, not realizing the weight of what was being left unsaid. I think it's time we talk about that. Right now, my daughter and I are not talking. The last time I heard her voice, not through a headset, not in passing, but actually talked to her, was December 2024, just a couple months ago, when I agreed to drive her cute, sweet pup Luna from here to Tampa, Florida. And when I say here, I mean Ventura, California. So yes, it was cross country. I've had a couple awkward phone calls with her, one letter, which her handwriting is so beautiful, and I just truly miss every bit of her. There's been 2 tense, uncomfortable visits. The first one being Mother's Day last year, and I never want a repeat of that again. Once in a while, I will catch a glimpse of her voice through Jason's headphones when she's playing Dungeons and Dragons with him. But other than that, silence. That silence hurts. She's mad at me. She won't hear me out. I can't even properly apologize for anything I've done wrong because it's just silence from her, or an extremely rude comment like, "Stop sending me this shit or I'll block you." I've sent her some Facebook reels that remind me of her, and I've attempted some conversations that really never go anywhere. And that's the part that keeps me up at night. The silence, the no conversation. My sweet daughter was born in March of 2004. I was just 29 years old, but was much better prepared for this baby. I was so excited. I'll never forget the day I learned she was a girl. I was working at Tower MRI in Tampa, Florida, in the transcription department, and one afternoon I was meandering into the break room, and I leaned over to grab some papers or files or something, and it hit me. It's a girl, and her name is Emma. I stood up and I knew right then and there. I was only about 3 months along, and it was too early in the pregnancy to see the sex of the baby on an ultrasound, but I knew, and I was right. As I have mentioned, this pregnancy was much different than Jacob's. Unfortunately, despite my much healthier eating habits, including fruit, which I never eat fruit, I never did, well, I do now, but I never had before, and my daughter eats tons of fruit, so that's why. Emma's birth was actually not so easy, and in fact, we both almost lost our lives. After being sent home from the hospital a week earlier and told that even though the ultrasound was measuring a baby at 10 pounds, it was probably more like 8 and I could wait another week. So I went back home and hung out in pain. When I went finally to have Emma and got hooked up to everything, they put Cervidil on my cervix, and I asked them not to, but they did anyway because, they know better than me. Anyway, it was a very long labor and delivery. I was getting sick. It had been 24 hours had passed, and my stomach was hurting, my back was hurting. I was extremely uncomfortable. My sweet mom and her wife, Becky, the patience portrayed was incredible. And my sweet stepmom, Becky, she's not the type to hold a bowl for someone when they're throwing up, and she did. So that tells you a lot right there. When I finally mentioned this to one of the nurses who was 12, she said, "Ma'am, this is childbirth. It's supposed to hurt." Yeah, fun stuff. Jacob was just 9 years old at the time, and it had been mostly just he and I the entire time. The prospect of having a little sister was very exciting for him. You could see it all over his face. He was so eager to be a big brother, and I was so excited that I was able to do that for him. He doted on her, and it was so cute. If you get a chance, please visit the gallery at juliesworld.net, where I have uploaded some baby pictures of Emma with Jacob, just trying not to melt. After about 36 hours of labor, I had finally dilated to a 7. I was exhausted, and it was about 3:30 in the morning, and one of the nurses came in to do her rounds and didn't say anything to me, but quickly walked out the door and was back in a few seconds with the doctor and another nurse. And after some poking and prodding, I was delirious. I didn't know what was going on, but I was going to be giving birth within the hour. That was the decision. She had to come via C-section because her heart rate was dropping and was showing distress. To be honest, I was excited that I was going to get to meet her soon, but I was also terrified that they were going to need to cut me open to get her out. I am very thankful my mom was with me right by my side the entire time. I don't think I've ever seen a more concerned look on a face, but I'm just very thankful that she was there with me. So Emma was born around 6:04 a.m. and when I heard that first cry, all the pain, all of the worry and fear just melted away, and I had this permagrin and tears just streaming down my face. I was so excited she was here. Because of all the complications, I had to stay in the hospital for 5 days. Emma did as well. And of course, I was breastfeeding. I managed it very well this time, for 10 months even. Ha. Very proud of myself for that. Those moments, though, in the hospital after she was born are just precious moments that I will never forget. Fast forward about 20 years. Last April, my daughter moved out of my home for the first time ever to live with her biological father and his wife in Tampa, Florida. And I didn't just let it happen, I made it happen because at the time, I truly believed it was the best thing for her. Surprise! Teenagers can be difficult. They need direction, advice, to be told no occasionally, and experience consequences. So, you know that joke about the parenting manual and the how-to book for life? Yeah, it's not so funny to me. The good news is I know I'm not alone. I know that pretty much every parent on the planet is going to experience this if they haven't already. But let me rewind a little bit. COVID was brutal. I think that we are going to see the consequences of those years for decades to come. The online games were already at an all-time high in the house for everyone, except for me and the animals. Emma was towards the end of her sophomore year of high school when the school shut down. And at first, for a while, it was heaven for me. I had both kids at home. I knew where they were. They couldn't go anywhere. So everyone was safe. And at first, again, it was really nice. But after a while, everyone was just kind of in their own worlds, doing their own things. I found myself watching television because they would all be on their computers, playing games, doing things. I tried to stay busy. I mean, I just did a lot of housework at the time, but just like everyone else. At the same time, school was online, homework was online, the world was online. When you're fighting a battle you don't understand and are continually shot down, eventually I had to put my metaphorical sword away. Fast forward a couple more years, and little did I know I should have kept that sword out, because what was about to happen was not only shocking, but the metaphorical rug was about to be pulled out from under all of us. Ever since learning I was pregnant with Emma, I have tried to make every moment count. I've tried to pick my battles, make every moment matter, because I felt like I missed so much with Jacob. For the first 9 years of his life, I pretty much worked the entire time, or went to school, or studied, or, to further our lives. I was always constantly trying to do that. And all of that time, it was so hard. I missed him. He would cry when I would leave the daycare, and I just wished I could be with him. It would be different now. I decided then and there, when Emma was not even born yet, that we would do things different. And that was that. At this point, some of you might be wondering or asking, where were the fathers in all of this, the bio dads? Neither of them were present at the birth of their children. One was incarcerated at the time and the other was in denial. And oh, by the way, side note, Emma was 10 pounds, 4 ounces at birth. So, yeah. Anyway, I know I wasn't perfect. I know I made mistakes. I will continue to make mistakes. I know I was constantly stretched between two kids who both needed more than I had to give. And yes, Jacob's needs were immediate. He was in crisis, and when a child is in crisis, you drop everything to be there. But that never meant that Emma wasn't loved. It never meant she wasn't just as important. It never meant she wasn't seen or heard. I don't know, maybe she saw things different. But it seemed like everything I did to get her out of the house with me failed. I did not know at the time, but she was conversing with a parent in the house, taking advice from her stepdad. Unfortunately, he and I have never been good at conversing or sharing things that matter, really, unless it's a crisis. To the point of all of this, crisis. When you're in a crisis, it's fight or flight. Our home was always in fight or flight. we really did have a lot of good times. Camping trips, trips to Texas to see family and friends, sporting events, trips to the beach, etc. But each of these moments were planned carefully, with the type of precision that perhaps a master craftsman takes when assembling a piece of work. Timing is everything. One slip of the schedule, and it could all be done, and whatever planned event just not happen. Medications, routines. I'll say it again. The expertise of a master craftsman. Every detail matters. In my last episode, I shared experiences that seemed random, but they come from experience. One slip and all hell will break loose, and anyone within earshot gets to experience that. There's a blog post on my website at juliesworld.net called Spirit Airlines. I highly recommend checking that out. The kindness of strangers really can make all the difference. I want to be very clear. None of this is Jacob's fault. None of this is Emma's fault. But growing up in a house where one child takes up so much space, it does something to the other child. Maybe she felt like she had to be the easy one, the one who didn't need as much. Maybe she felt like I saw her as an afterthought. I didn't. I don't now. I never will. I just want to talk about it. I want us both to heal. If I could say one thing to you, Emma, it would be this. I see you, baby. I see the ways that you might have felt overlooked. I see the hurt. And more than anything, I want to be there for you. Not to place blame, not to rehash old wounds, but to heal. And that's why I'm doing this podcast, because I know I'm not alone. I know there are a lot of parents out there struggling the same way. And I want us to connect. I want us to reach out to each other. I want guests. I want us to talk, to have these conversations. Maybe, just maybe, we can make some movement in this world of ours. Next week, join me for part 2 of this episode, where we're going to dive in more about what it really means to be unseen and unheard. I have a couple stories I've kept in my back pocket for a while that I don't want to share, but I have to. Stories about people who have been wrongfully accused and are in prison, have been imprisoned, people on the spectrum. And until then, let's keep these necessary conversations going. Peace. Have a wonderful week.